And then Rad Dad Revival is, just putting the emphasis back on dads being present and showing up for their kids. Sometimes your emotions are taking you deeper into wisdom. And so after you sit with it, you share it with someone so they can help you process it. Or maybe writing, if you don't have someone to share it with, like writing it out. We call each other the Radical Collective. We want to see brotherhood become a normal piece. And we call it open-hearted brotherhood, where you're sharing your life and you're willing to share it with others. I cannot just throw up a prayer and say, and you can do this and say like, God, will you fix this for me? I had to be like, wow, I've got to make a choice. I have to take responsibility for being the man I want to be. I can't outsource it even to God.
Yep. All started.
Okay.
Kick it off. Hey.
All right. Welcome back, everyone, to yet another episode of the Two Dads podcast, where we talk about all things dad. Today, we have another very special guest. A father of three, he has made decisions that some of us have never had to make in our lives. He is someone who is radicalizing the way kids are being brought up. So let us welcome Steve, also known as Red Dad Revival.
Ooh. Hey, Steve.
What's up? What's up, guys? Good to be here.
Thank you
to
for
the Two Dads podcast.
Yeah, thank you for taking this opportunity to for letting us have the opportunity to speak.
Yeah, coming to you live from Florida.
And we're over here in Singapore, 12 hours away.
Yeah, man. This is my first podcast from Singapore. Very stoked to be here.
Very stoked to have you too.
Yeah, man.
Okay, so I have a question that I usually ask all our guests on this podcast, and the question is, what's the story behind your Instagram handle, right?
Yeah.
I find it very interesting that everybody has a unique Instagram handle, and more often than not, they have a very unique story that follows it. As well. So, could you share with us, please? What's the story behind the Red Dad Revival?
Sure. Yeah. So, when I don't know what comes to mind when you think about the word rad, but in America, in the States, it's usually associated with activities like surfing, skating. I'm back here. You can see my gear. It's the Rad Lab is what we call it. And so I grew up surfing, skating, and it was just kind of a joke. So I just chose Rad Dad, and that's it sounds kind of cheesy. It's a little bit cheesy, but as I dove more into the word rad and radical, I became more in love with the word, because the word radical means to get to the root. And when you get to the root, which is the reality, oftentimes people push you to the outside, and then you become the other meaning, which is radical. So they're like, oh, he's a radical because, he's never wearing shoes, or he's drinking like raw milk that's not pasteurized, or he's doing this, and like, oh, you're a radical. And it's like, no, I'm just getting back to the root of things. So yeah. And then Rad Dad Revival is, just putting the emphasis back on dads being present and showing up for their kids, which I know is a big passion for you guys. I think you have young kids, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've been a rad dad for a while. I've got a 13-year-old son, a 10-year-old daughter, and a 5-year-old son. So I've been getting my reps in. Been at it.
Yeah, we actually recently had another podcast where they say, parenting is all about the reps, right? The more you practice, the better you get at it. If you want to be patient, you got to practice patience, so on and so forth, right? So I think it's a very awesome thing that you did. Something that I'm curious about is in one of your Instagram posts, you mentioned you made quite a radical or extreme decision to move 2,000 miles to an island in Hawaii, right? I assume you are still there.
No,
right?
No, actually. So yeah, if we want to dive into that a little bit. So we were in Maui for only 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And what we did is, if we want to just jump right into it, that was a major change in our family's life. Before we went and visited Maui, my wife and I were at a point in our relationship and my own life where I needed to change. I needed to do things differently, but the way that I was living, we were we were heavily involved in certain churches and doing certain things, and we were just banging our head against the wall. And I'm like, I need to change, but what we've been doing is not working. And so I was kind of desperate. And we had some friends who actually moved to Maui for a while, and they were in this mentorship and with this woman, Michelle Chatham, and she was doing some mentorship and coaching, and they were just giving us all this good feedback about it. And I was at this point where I was like, we need to do something radical. And so we entered this mentorship, and it was with 3 other couples, and that we're still close with. And then we went to Maui as part of it, and that's a whole story. I did an initiation with my son, who's 13, of just that manhood rite of passage and stuff, and then we moved back to Florida, and we started to implement some of the things we're learning. So that's kind of long story short, but yeah, we had to really just go for it to make some changes.
Yeah, and I can only imagine that is not an easy decision to make. Parenting, as I think Aloysius and myself, we have experienced before,
Yeah,
requires us to make very drastic life changes, because we were like, before kids, we are 2 individuals, right? Living our
yeah,
own lives. We got married, we're still trying to figure each other out. And then a
yeah,
kid comes along.
uh-huh,
It's a whole different ball game altogether. So that decision to change your lifestyle is not easy, and I imagine it's exceptionally harder on you. How did you overcome that difficulty? Right, you
mm,
know suddenly something hit you. Say, I need to do something different. What was your tipping point in making the decision?
yeah, pain and desperation. There's an author I really like. His name is Richard Rohr, but he says, like, really there's only 2 things that bring about change in your life, and that's great beauty or great suffering. And oftentimes it's great suffering. And
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to lose everything. I'm going to lose my marriage. I'm not going to be the role model that my boys need. And it's interesting that you brought up becoming a dad, because in tribal days, we had rites of passage. The men took the boys and they said, we're going to take you from boy to man. And we don't have that as much anymore. I know in Western culture we don't. And I feel like the last rite of passage we have, if done right, is having a child. Because when you have a partner or a spouse, you can still be very selfish, and and even codependent. You can be like, this partner is filling a hole in my life. But once you have kids, you've got to step up and be the man.
Yeah.
And a lot of us don't know how, or we have a hard time transitioning. And so I had to do that for myself. And if you want me to share a little bit about when I went to Maui, I took my son and I said, I'm going to do a rite of passage for him. He was 12 years old at the time, and I had a friend there, and we took him to the cliff jumps to jump off the rocks, and we were telling him, like, hey, like, you're going into manhood, we've got your back. And then we took him to the top of a volcano above the clouds, and he said, you're leaving childhood behind. And I got really we were doing all this cool stuff, but I got really upset. I got really angry, because I'm like, who did this for me? Like, no, like, we're doing this awesome stuff. So I was angry, but then I had to get over it and realize that if you're familiar with the Bible, I thought about, like, multiple times in the Bible where the men were initiated by God. There was no other men involved. God was just showed up, and he said, listen, you've got to go from here to here. And God took them. So it's like, all right, God, me and you, let's go for this. So in Maui, I went before sunrise in the pitch black dark to an overlook that was a big wave spot called Jaws. And I'm like, I'm going to walk down there. And it was pitch black. And it was like very scary and unsettling, because it was like a mile walk. So a mile in the pitch black. Some wild pigs like ran across the trail at one point and scared me to death. And I get to the overlook, and the sun's rising, and I was expecting this very loud, God moment, but what happened was complete silence. And what that
Everybody
communicated,
goes there, right?
Yeah, what that communicated to me is like, I've got to make a choice. Like, I cannot just throw up a prayer and say, and you can do this and say, like, God, will you fix this for me? I had to be like, wow, I've got to make a choice. I see God all around me, like in this beautiful nature. God is with me. I know that. But I've got to step up and decide who I want to be. And so I picked up my shoes and I walked back. And from that point on, it really started the journey of like I'm not on my own. I've got God. I've got brothers, which is very important. We can talk about that later, but I have to take responsibility for being the man I want to be. I can't outsource it even to God. Like, he needs me in this process. So I had to initiate myself, and then we're still in the refinement process. I'm still getting the reps in.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. And believe it or not, I think Aloysius may agree with me on this. It sounds very much like what all men go through in Singapore when they turn 18, which is national service, when they serve the
Yeah.
army. Sounds a bit like that, but yours
Yeah.
sounds 100 times more fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah, Steve. So you talk about radicalize bloodline through red habits and brotherhood. You just mentioned that, and that's something that pretty interesting because it's not easy to start off this whole lifestyle change, and furthermore, you're bringing your entire family into this to participate with you
Yeah.
leading the entire household in front doing that. So how has that been for you, and
Mm.
how do you overcome challenges, and even how other people would be thinking about you, talking about, hey, what's all this change of lifestyle? Could you share a little bit more about all this as well as brotherhood?
Yeah. Yeah. So, man, so you brought up three things. So the radicalize your bloodline piece is, you said you're taking yourself and your family with you, but you're actually taking your whole bloodline from the past, and you're taking your future with you as well, because you have a past that has given you both good, and it's given you challenges. And that stuff is in your bloodline. It's in your DNA. And you have to face the reality of, like, my dad struggled with this, or his father struggled with this, and you've got to come to terms with that. And that's a challenge. But there's no growth, there's no success, there's no honor or pride without facing the struggle. Because you guys like to work out, so we all like to look better, we all like to feel better, but that comes from putting in the work, and that gives us a sense of pride. We're like, oh man, you don't just automatically feel good and have some muscle. Like, you got to put in the work, and then you're like, I showed up, I did this. And the rad habits are it's the daily stuff that supports the choices that you want to make, like who you want to be. So if I want to be energetic, present, strong, a good role model, I have to build my life around things that give me that energy. So for instance, if I want to have energy, I'm orienting my life around nature. Like, I'm getting energy from putting my bare feet on the ground, from looking at the sun, from the foods I eat, from drinking quality water. I mentioned like raw milk. I'm crazy about that stuff. Like, I'm getting good sleep. I'm very nerdy about all that stuff, but I'm supporting that to give me energy. But then, like, the rad habits of silence, like just getting quiet, like meditation, just listening to my heart and my head, like what's going on. That's been a huge one. And so anyone could have their own rad habits, of what works for them. But then maybe the biggest piece is the brotherhood piece. And just a couple things that come to mind. Like, I've been very blessed to have other rad dads who have found each other, and we're just in it together. And I think this is something that a lot of dads need, and it's hard to find. It's like a good friend, and it's a friend who will let you be you. They'll let you be the mess that you might be, but then they will also call out the greatness in you. So they're not just going to let you feel sorry for yourself, to be like, oh man, my marriage is struggling, my job is hard. Today I had a hard day being a dad. And they're going to be like, hey man, let's talk. Let's like, I want to hear it out. But then they're not going to just let us sit there and be a victim. And they're like, man, no, you're rad dad. Come on, man. Like you got this. What can we do for you? And me and my radical, we call each other the Radical Collective. We want to see brotherhood. We want to see brotherhood become a normal piece. And we call it open-hearted brotherhood, where you're sharing your life and you're willing to share it with others. It's kind of the opposite of Instagram, where we can get a lot into image, you know, and it's like, hey man, I don't care what you present. I care about you, what's really going on. So those things have been very foundational to me, of like facing my past, getting a vision for the future, doing things every day that keep me on my journey. And the brothers, man, the brothers have been huge. Yeah, man.
Would you say that actually made a huge difference? Because I mean, to put into perspective, Asians, we tend to be very conservative. We men in Asian cultures, we are taught to tough it out. I'm sure men all over the world are being told to suck it up, right?
Yep.
We don't share our emotions as often, and when we are hit with the brick wall, we are just taught to break through it by ourselves, right? So
Yep.
I just want to maybe seek your
It's
opinion
good.
on this whole brotherhood thing. How has it brought out your emotions when
Oh
you
man,
yeah
it's not just Eastern and Asian culture that
sure.
really makes it difficult to share with emotions. Now, I do think there's a side where it says that you can swing too far the other way, and you can let your emotions rule your life. And I think that's what you see in the Western culture a lot, is someone to be like, I'm depressed, and they'll be like, yes, and they'll put that label on you. You're depressed, or you're sad. Like, no, emotions, it's like a wave. I surf, so it's like a wave. Like, emotions come and they give us information. And so like you guys, I really struggled with my emotional life, and my wife was very tapped in, and she didn't understand how I couldn't communicate my emotions. And I've learned that emotions are the path to wisdom. And so you don't live in it, but some tools that have helped me, or some ways to understand emotions, is we don't just feel the emotion and just let it out automatically, to be like, so you have a bad day, and then you're like, oh, I had a bad day, my life is over, and you just let the emotions take over. The first thing is to sit with it and ask it questions. Like, what are you saying to me? And that's really a by yourself moment. And I'm teaching this to my son, who's 13. I'm like, sit with your emotion. Like, what is it telling you? And then I think it's appropriate to go share your emotion after you've given it a little bit of time, even if it's only a minute, to be like, what is, and sometimes our emotions are like, oh, you're hungry, angry, lonely, whatever. But sometimes your emotions are taking you deeper into wisdom. And so after you sit with it, you share it with someone so they can help you process it. Or maybe writing, if you don't have someone to share it with, like writing it out. But that's been a big shift for me, is emotions are trying to tell us something, and it's a path for wisdom, and you don't have to be stuck there. But if we don't investigate our emotions, we will be stuck there. You'll repeat the same patterns over and over and over again, and it will get louder and louder and louder, and it could do some damage in your life. If you, it's happened to me.
It's interesting because recently I'm reading a parenting book that talks about that, having to help people regulate their emotions and not just, shut it one side. And that is typically what traditional parenting does, right? If someone cries, just stop it, stop crying, stop all the fuss that you're going through. But that really helps to, take a step back, let our emotions sink in, and have someone to help to process it, because that is something that often is not available or not present, because in this fast-paced environment and culture, we want everything to be fast and quick, especially early in the morning. You need to send your kids to school, and you need to work. Emotions can get all over the place, and you just want things to get fast, and you don't want to let the emotions process. So has that been some challenge for you? And have
Oh yeah.
how have you, helped, because you have 3 kids and
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's
I have
at
one.
different stages too. So this is a great question. So I'm going to give you some parenting experience for myself. So this is very new, where I feel like I'm starting to get some more skill with it. But the first thing is, you got to think about the resourcing. Like, how is your life set up? Because sometimes our kids are just hungry, tired, overstimulated, or just it's just that age, and we have to understand, like, he just needs to eat. He needs to take a nap.
Yeah.
The second thing is being able to hold space. So a good phrase we use a lot of time for masculinity is being able to hold a frame. And so you build, like, a lot of men will build, and I'm bad at building, but you build out the frame, and it's a place of safety, security, and if you can hold that space, a lot of times your kids, you can help process it. And like you said, Aloysius, it's about helping your kids regulate their emotions, because it's a skill, and we are modeling. It's more is caught than taught. They are learning by what they see. So if I can keep my patience, if I can hold the space for them, a lot of times all they need is connection. And so if I can sit with them, a lot of times, they may be sad about something, but really they probably just need connection, and that's been clutch for me. And as your kids get older, I have a 13-year-old son, and he's having all sorts of emotions, but just teaching him, like, then you speak from experience. It's like, hey, emotions are a path to wisdom. It's teaching you something. And I have to tell him, man, like, I know you're upset. You probably need to go sit with this before you go, like, make a whole scene in the house. Like, before you let it take over your life, go sit with it. What's going on? Are you hungry? Or do you need a friend? Like, what's going on? Investigate it. So that's just some tips, man. Is give it space for sure. And a lot of times it's communicating the need for connection.
I I have a more selfish question, because I have a
Mhm.
daughter, and you have a daughter, right?
I
Aloysius
do.
has 2 sons, so yeah, he's covered.
I got you, man.
So yeah, do you, do you see any differences in terms of raising your sons and compared to your daughter, especially with what you've just shared, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure there are differences. Are there any?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm speaking from experience, and so everyone's kid is different. But I know for my household, we let our kids be kids. I've never said to my son or my daughter, "This is what a boy looks like. This is what a girl looks like." Now, my 13-year-old son, I have done that. I've talked about, hey, if you want to be a husband in the future, if you want to work at a job, you have to be responsible, and this is what this looks like. But my other kids, I just let them, even my 13-year-old, let him be what he wanted to be. And, my boys, it was trucks and noise and roughhousing. And my daughter, daddy's girl, man. Like, she wants to connect and be close. She wants to enjoy the time in a different way. And so my daughter, she wanted to surf and skate with dad. I never pushed that on her, but she wanted to skateboard in her, like, pink tutu, and she wanted to dance with daddy. And so I would say that when it comes to their emotions, I don't do it differently, because I still want to give them space and connection. And so I don't, like, treat my boy like, oh man, well, you're a boy, so you need to toughen up. Now, as my son gets older, I'm like, hey, the more age you get, you want to be a little tougher and make more, you want to be more responsible. But boys and girls both just need affection, connection, because then they feel safe. And when they feel safe and loved in who they are, they can start to be safe in creating the person they want to be. So I would say raising your son and daughter, I don't really put anything on them. I let them express themselves how they are, but I have noticed a difference, because my son is like, let's go, let's roughhouse, like, let's go through baseball, where my daughter's like, hey, like, let's just be here. And she just wants to be around me, and it's so sweet. and I'm gonna bawl my eyes out when she gets married one day because she's daddy's girl.
I know. I dread the day. No, I'm just kidding.
I know.
Yeah,
Enjoy
yeah.
the moments.
Yeah. So, Steve, you talk about something interesting about raw milk.
Let's go.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
like
been
that too.
something so different, and it's been so rare, right? It's not very common that
Yep.
people often go to the supermarket and just grab a carton of pasteurized milk.
Pasteurized milk, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so the thing with raw milk is, number one, I do love it. Okay. So I love it because, and I call myself the raw milk evangelist. Okay. I love it because when you pasteurize and homogenize milk, it cooks out a lot of the nutrients
Mhm.
Yep.
and the enzymes, the digestive enzymes that actually help you digest and absorb the nutrients from the milk. So you're getting like a more sterile product, and you're not having the digestive enzymes to properly process it. So a lot of people are lactose intolerant, and that's a lot of times because of the processed state of the dairy. But if you actually get, clean milk from a trusted farmer, you're getting that superfood with all the digestive enzymes you need. So, if we make our own ice cream, we like the raw cheese, and I consider it a superfood, and it's got, the fat, protein, and carbs all in one thing. So my sons like drink it up, man. Me and my 13 will hit a workout, and it's raw milk right after that. And the second thing about it, though, is in society, this is the radical part. We get so used to doing things because people tell us what to do,
Yeah.
and we've lost, and we don't ask questions. And I'm teaching my kids. I'm like, you need to ask questions. Like, why don't they allow people to sell like, unpasteurized milk in the store and this and that? And you start to do some digging. And so it's also kind of a radical statement for me to like, it's a gateway drug for people to be like, if I get them on raw milk, then they start asking other questions about what is the government and the school system like telling me to believe, without me actually like just thinking and asking questions. So and I'll walk barefoot into stores, and I just do like weird stuff to kind of get like, why is he doing that? And I'm like, well, you could do it too. You're a free person. Like, ask questions. So I do weird stuff sometimes.
No, it's okay because I think it really teaches kids the critical thinking part, right? Just don't call it herd mentality, and it's quite sad. People just do things for the sake of doing it and just to be accepted by society, right? In our previous podcast, we had a dad as well who is doing the uncommon thing. He's telling.
Oh, I love him. Yeah.
He's
the man.
Yeah, he's doing.
Yeah.
I think there's so much overlap between you and him. He's telling, he was teaching us, don't just do what other people tell you. Do what is best for you. And
Yes.
and there's so much truth in what you just shared because I recently I have a newborn child, right? And
Yeah.
we usually freeze breast milk, and
Yeah.
same logic is the reason you don't cook the breast milk, you don't microwave the breast milk, is because you kill off all the good enzymes, you kill off all the good bacteria, right? And so I think there's really a lot of logic in what you just said.
Yeah.
So why are we not drinking raw milk?
Exactly. Now you gotta know your farmer. You want to make sure that it's sourced from a clean farm and everything. But
Of course. I think that would be a challenge in Singapore because we are so small and we don't have.
We lack of natural resources, and the
such
only
a
farm that I know in Singapore that sells raw milk is, I think, this goat farm in somewhere, where they process. They don't process milk. I think they have this raw goat milk they can drink fresh. Yeah, so that's the only place, and it's not cheap, CK. So you can look for raw milk.
Yeah. Well, I hope you can find some.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's not easy to find, but if you are persistent enough, I think definitely there will be one or two out there. Yeah. So Steve, I'm curious on has there been any setback from people around you to ask hey Steve, why are you being so rad? Can't you just be like how the rest of us are doing, just do the normal stuff, the
Yeah.
normal way, lead a normal lifestyle. Has that been coming uh, to you, especially through close friends or people that you are, having so much
Yeah.
trust?
There has been some, but I think when you make the shift, and I call it the two halves of life, and it doesn't have to be halfway through your life. I'm just talking about the first part of your life and the second part of your life. The first part of your life is the one that's been prescribed and kind of set in motion for you. And when you start to make changes at that point, people ask questions. They're like, well, why aren't you going to this church every day that we used to go to? Or why do you believe different things? Or why, like there's so many things, and I don't want to get it, like, I want to keep it like normal radical here. And yes, and it's uncomfortable and it can be sad. There was a church that I was working at. I used to be a pastor, and super painful process because the church was not acting in a Christian way. And it was like, I'm like, wait a second. I thought we were supposed to follow the teachings of Jesus, and it just wasn't. And we ended up getting kicked out for just asking questions about it. And like all of our friends abandoned us. They were just like, no. It was just too painful for them because they would have to step out of the herd mentality in order to, and so they didn't want to rock the boat. But once you move into the second part of your life, and that's where you know who you are. Now, you're not perfect, you're not there yet, but you know who you are and where you're taking your family. Things just kind of fall into place. The right people will come into your life. The people who aren't on track with you they'll just kind of let you do your own thing. Now, family is tricky because family is always family. You can't just be like, bye, family. But you can learn how to have appropriate boundaries and be like, hey, like me and my family, we don't do this. Like, I respect that you guys do it this way. We do things a little differently, and it's okay. But you learn how to take a secure stance in what you're doing. So you'll still have uncomfortable moments. But I'd say once you get very clear on your values and you feel good about who you are and your family, things just kind of fall into place as far as your relationships go. And I don't have many close friends where I live that I have an open-hearted friendship with, but I've found like a network digitally. And I've got friends, this radical collective I talk about. We talk every Sunday and our text messages every day, and I found it. So once you get clear, like it will come to you, But yes, it can be uncomfortable and sad at sometimes,
Yeah, I mean, this is real because I asked this question because I have tried to do some, red kind of ways as well. Not that red enough, but people will come and ask question, why do you do this? And why are you not, following the herd? And it's challenging because you don't want to be outcast. And eventually I myself that I have reached a point I find that being who I am is more important. Being with my family at this juncture is one of the most important way. And it's not, I mean, I didn't grow up in church, but, I was in a church setting in my entire youth days.
Yeah.
So it was challenging because I have a lot of friends, a lot of peers that I hang out with. But it reached a point that I told myself, I want to take a step back because I want to just be me for the time being. It's not that I'm not seeking God anymore. It's just that I want to go to a kind of zone to say that it's time for me to look at family. But we re-enter back to church, but not to the same church anymore. We went to another church. Yeah, we have been, doing well over there, growing.
That's great.
And we want to continue that, but oftentimes it's challenging because when you have kids, the entire lifestyle shift and change. So yeah, I need to learn a lot from you, Steve, how to continue to lead that red life and red habits, leading the family that way.
Well,
and not just family, but the entire bloodline.
Yeah. And it's not easy, but I'm always going to send you back to your relationship with God and yourself, because you're on your own path. My path is my own path. And our radical collective, we always talk about, there's this quote by Joseph Campbell, and he talks about the hero's journey. And this is what he says. He says, if you find another path, if you see a path, that's someone else's path, because every human is a unique phenomenon. And that means God has a unique path for each man, each woman, each child. And we have to give each other space to work that out. And a good friend, a true friend, would be one that be like, hey, I know you left this church, or I know you stopped working this job. I know that. I don't understand, but help me understand. And how can I support you? Then that's a true friend right there, who will enter into the space with you.
Yeah.
And that's what we want.
I have been practicing that in my workplace because I've been a people manager for close to 10 years. And whenever my direct report resigns, I give them the blessing. I celebrate that occasion, of them, reaching the next career trajectory of their whole career pathway. And it's a moment I think not a lot of people in the workplace will use this kind of mentality to say, hey, I'm going to give you a blessing. I'm going to be happy for you that you find this. But most of the time it's the other way, it's challenging. And yeah, it's pretty interesting how you have shared that, because I would like to have that kind of mindset and mentality as well, not just
I love it.
In personal life, in my family, in my friends.
Yeah, I love it. That's the way to go, man. If we all, there's two ways to view the world. One way is to view that there's not enough. I call it lack mentality, and that's where if someone leaves your company, you're like, oh no, why would they leave us? Like that says something bad to us maybe, and you get insecure. But the other way is a generous universe, where an abundant universe where like God is here to bless, and there's always enough. And once you step into that, you realize like, hey, I can bless this person. I can give money to this person, and it comes back to you. It just comes back. It's like, it's like you can't outgive God. You can't do it. Try, you can't do it.
Tried it before and seen it come back multiple times.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so I just have a question. Sorry if I actually taking this backwards, but
No,
it's
it's
back
good.
to the topic of the marriage. I think counseling, was it counseling or therapy?
Mentorship.
Mentorship. Yes. So oftentimes couples, they fear going into these kind of sessions for the stigma reasons, right? Say, oh, your marriage is not good. You have to go for counseling. Something must be wrong, right? So and they tend to avoid it, or they tend to avoid sharing that they are going for such things.
Yeah.
So I have not participated, of course, post marriage, but before getting married, as Catholics do, we have to go for this thing called the marriage preparation course, where I think it's similar, and I think it's super helpful, right? You really deep dive into what you hate about your partner and what your partner hates about you, and you talk about it. So I just want to find out from you what your experience was, and is the fear of going for such sessions unfounded?
Oh no, I mean, everyone needs help, and the people who don't think they need help probably need it the most. And it is a step, and that's like what I talk about, the two halves of life. The first half of life, we're obsessed with what other people think, but then the pain and the desperation gets too much, where you're like, I'm going to lose this marriage, or I'm going to be unhappy, or I'm not going to be the kind of dad I want to be unless I seek out help. So you're just in pain, and you can't take it anymore. And that's what a lot of times people will take the step, and they don't care what people think. They're like, I don't even care anymore. But do it. Like, we do need to normalize it. We do need to normalize like people like taking advantage of support. And so in my experience, but if you do therapy, it's not enough to go to therapy or do a mentorship or do a program or read a book even. You have to take that knowledge, and it has to be experienced. You have to take it from your head to your heart and really face reality. And for me, it took me probably 2 years, at least a year and a half after the mentorship. I'm in this mentorship that I'm paying money for. It took me a year and a half before I really did the work. I was listening. I was participating. I wasn't against it. I was for it. But you have to do the work for yourself. Like, you have to internalize it. And otherwise you'll just keep repeating the same pattern. So I would say for men, rip the Band-Aid off. It's better to face the pain now, because guess what? It's not going to go anywhere. We're only as sick as our secrets is what some people say. So, and I want to say specifically, if you are addicted to something, like, I know that it can be shameful, but I want to take away all shame, because we have to face reality and that there's hope on the other side of addiction. And so whether it's substances, whether it's, what we're looking at on the internet, like, we have to face those things in order to live that most radical life. And so if anybody needs resources with that stuff, I've got this whole Radical Collective. Like, we have guys who, we're dedicated, we're here for the desperate. The desperate man is the ready man.
Well said. Do you accept 12 hour apart, people?
Yeah, he definitely do, because we are 12 hours apart and Steve is speaking with us. Yeah, so anytime, just give Steve a ping and the Radical Collective will be ready.
That's right, man.
Yeah. And talking about that, I have joined Steve on a Murph challenge, and being someone who is not that fit, I may look fit because I've been working out, but
yeah, man, you look good.
No, I can run. So running is my weakness. So when I do that Murph challenge, running was the toughest for me.
Yeah. And I love the challenges. So we do the Rad Dad Bod challenges, and physical challenge is a picture of life. And so I often find, like, if I can get a guy to get off the couch, like, then he'll start to engage his life more, because he'll see the wins too. He's like, okay, I'm feeling better. I have the energy now. And if he can push through, like, the discouragement of, I'm not where I thought I was, so you're running or you're doing push-ups, you're like, oh man, I'm not as cool as I thought I was. If you can get through that, you can take on anything, so that's why I use those Rad Dad Bod challenges to be like, hey, come on, get off, let's go. And then all of a sudden they want to make their whole life better.
Yeah. We're hoping to see more of that, because that.
Oh yeah. It's time for another one.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. I'll cook one up.
CK will join us.
All right, man. Let's go. You just got volunteers. You got volunteers.
Yes. Okay, I'm all up for it.
There we go.
All right, Steve. So before we end off today's podcast, as usual, we will usually ask, dads to give us some advice. And I think that the thing about that advice is, pun is intended, giving advice to other dads. It's not to tell them that this is the best advice we want you to listen and follow, but it's really something for them to, if you think it's useful, use it. If not, you can discard it, but, you may come back and refer to this advice that, we shared. So is there any advice that you have for our listeners and any dads out there who wants to be read or,
Yeah. I'm going to speak from personal experience. We talk about the rad thing. The rad thing is not the activities we do. It's not that stuff. The radical part is how we live. And I would say two things. Ask yourself the difficult questions of, where am I at in my life? Do I care more about what other people think, like my family, my friends, my work? And if not, if I'm not where I want to be, where do I want to be? And do not put it off. Don't even put it off till tomorrow, because there's two ways to live: existing, and that's sad. Honestly, it's a slow death. And then radically living, and radically living comes with overcoming challenges. That's all it is. But then you continue to expand. So ask yourself the hard questions. Am I at where I want to be? And if not, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get there, whether it's reaching out to a friend, whether it's moving to a new place, whether it's looking at my job, whether it's having that conversation with your spouse or going into therapy or going into a mentorship. Like, do whatever it takes, because there's a radical life on the other side of that.
Wow.
That's it.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Steve.
Yeah, man.
All right. So, CK, you have anything?
No, I think that's all. I learned a lot from you, Steve. Thank you so much for your sharing. Yeah, I feel like I became a better dad already.
Heck yeah. Love it. Love it.
So for our
So good,
listeners
guys.
out there, if you would like to find out more about Steve and his red lifestyle, how he has been living all the red habits, raising kids red, follow him on IG, Red Dad Revival. He has a lot of interesting posts, and he has a radical collective recently happening. I saw his IG story. It's
Yeah, man.
pretty exciting. I love
We're being a little mysterious with it, but yeah, it's happening.
I saw the story. I was like, come on, man, when is it gonna happen? I want to
Yeah. Be patient. Be patient.
I will.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to fellow listeners out there, so if you like our podcast, do subscribe, share, and give us a comment. What else do you like to hear more? And we'll be happy to share more stories and having more hosts and guests coming on board to share different lifestyle of how a dad can live their life. Thank you, everyone. Thank you,
Hey,
Steve.
thank you so much. Thank you
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.